Hi, we're here at Pizzazz in Chino, and we're going to install the z-afm self-mapping system onto our Yamaha 450. We need to put the system on the motorcycle, install it, and then put the O2 sensor in the head pipe. Dale from Pizzazz, he's going to be doing the install. We have the expert do it. And he's going to be showing you how simple it is to actually install the system. Dale, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, Larry, so basically what we're going to be doing is installing the z-afm. What this will entail is removing the seat, the tank, and the side fairings. And by doing that, it'll access the engine compartment to where you could then plug in the z-afm into the ZFI harness, which has been pre-installed on day one. And will allow us to go ahead and map the bike as the rider is out on track.
Lots of Z's, but it's going to be good. So there we go.
To start with, we're going to be removing the seat. Next, we'll go ahead and remove the side fairings. Now that the side fairings are removed, we will begin to remove the tank. Perfect. The common place for installing a z-afm is usually in the same spot as the ZFI, which is for street bikes in the tail section, dirt bikes mounted up near the air box. But in this case, because space is limited, we're going to go ahead and mount the z-afm along the left side frame rail. To mount the z-afm, this is normally a complete covered space on the factory bodywork, but what we did is we cut the exact dimensions of the z-afm so it could be fitted along this left side frame rail. We're using zip ties to secure it tight up against the bottom side of the subframe. Make sure that it is secure and tight to the frame. Now that the unit is secure, you will go ahead and connect the 6-pin white connector to the Pizzazz 6-pin white connector. Next, we'll go ahead and install the z-afm's O2 sensor. For this application, we're going to go ahead and mount the O2 sensor connector down here by the subframe mount to the frame. We are now routing the z-afm cable down the left-hand side of the bike to then connect to the O2 sensor connector. We're connecting the z-afm O2 sensor connector to the O2 sensor. We mounted the map select switch here on the front of the triple clamps, but it can be mounted anywhere within a handlebar reach. It's so that you could actually switch from map 1 to map 2 on the fly. We routed the map select lead down the left-hand side of the bike to the engine compartment, where we connected the 2-pin white connector on the Pizzazz harness and the map select switch together.
So we just finished installing the self-mapping system. You watched Dale put it on, and it's fairly simple. You have some wires, so take your time, make sure that you route them correctly. If you're installing it yourself, you want to make sure you're keeping everything away from the exhaust pipe and the engine. And you know, wires can touch some hot places. Don't have them touch the exhaust pipe, but they can lay on the engine in some places. And just make sure you get everything routed as good and as clean as possible. Definitely take your time and make sure it's done right. Dale, if there's anything you want to
That about covers it, Larry. I mean, you just want to make sure that everything's routed away from any moving parts, hot locations, as Larry said, the exhaust. So as long as you keep things neat and tidy, I think you'll be, smooth sailing from there and be on your bike in no time.
Everything's built actually to just plug and play. So just take your time, like I said, and watch how Dale did it, and I'm sure you'll come out with your own little way to do it, but everything's pretty straightforward. So let's get on the dyno and see what we do. Okay, we finished up here at Pizzazz. We've been on the dyno this morning and running through some different mappings and installing the self-mapping unit. Seemed to have some good gains, actually really strong. We're going to need to run it at the track, kind of see where we have the feelings at the track, but I mean, I was pretty impressed with the way the whole unit was installed, the way that it installed and worked on the dyno. My big excitement through this whole project was using the standard Japanese electronics and being able to manipulate the standard electronics using the Pizzazz products. That seemed to work very well. I know that the Japanese electronics work really good, and then the products that Pizzazz has even makes it work that much better. I think we need to explain to you, the viewer, a little bit of how the mapping works. Patrick here from Pizzazz, he's going to explain a little bit. He's going to start with the mapping, the fuel mapping system, and then he's going to work into the self-mapping system. So Patrick, you take over, and I'll leave it to the expert.
All right. Well, we'll start with what they call a z-afm, and it's Z for Pizzazz and then Fi for fuel injection. And as opposed to the old days where you had a needle, a main jet, pilot, float height, what have you, you've taken all that and you've built a map. And this is basically like a road map. It tells you where you need to go. So it's the same theory, it's just based off electronics. So what we're looking at here is actually the software that you use to control our fuel injection programmer. This is the same software that the consumer will use to do this. It's free on our website. If you ever like to download it, you don't even have to have the product. You can download and play with it and get familiar with it before you purchase a product. Over here we have the throttle position signal. So we use this to see what position you are with the throttle while you're riding, and it's also done in a percentage. So we plug directly into the throttle position sensor. Over here we have the RPM. We also use RPM. We take it off the crankshaft position sensor to see how fast the engine's spinning. So we use these different inputs like the throttle position and the RPM to know at what point we'll need to change the fuel percentage. So that's how this map is built. The second item we have is the self-mapping system, which is the second tab over here. And I'll move over to that real quick. This is our accessory self-mapping system called the z-afm. As you can see, I've moved over one to the self-mapping tab. So this is what you would see at home when you're using this system. The self-mapping unit is basically a rolling dyno. It collects data on air-fuel ratios as you're riding, and it allows you to build a custom map for yourself at any point in time. So it's literally like having a dyno tuner and a dyno with you wherever you go. The system works off the target air-fuel ratio that you've selected, that you want this system to map to. So right here we have 13.0 to 1, that means 13 parts air to 1 part fuel. So when we start this system, it's going to look at every cross from RPM to throttle that you've touched while you're riding, and it's going to record data. And it's going to take that data and it's going to look at the air-fuel ratio that you asked for, and it's going to convert it to a change. And that change is going to be a percentage of fuel that it takes to get you to that perfect 13.0 air-fuel ratio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this system. We'll do a little mock run, and we'll explain what we're looking at here. I'm going to hit start, and this is going to start the recording, the data recording process. And as you can see, your throttle percentage is going up and down. This is when you're riding, and this is your RPM. When you're riding, it's going up and down. And every time these two items, these two pieces of information cross, it picks up the air-fuel ratio and it converts it to a percentage. And so this is telling me that I need to go 16% richer at 10,500 RPM at 60% throttle to reach our target AFR. So the more riding you do, the more data you collect. And the more varying throttle versus RPM points, the more data you'll collect overall. Now, once we're done collecting, we run, let's say, two moto practices is a pretty good amount of information. We'll come over here and we'll move to the right and we'll hit stop. So that's stopped our data collection. And then once we want to see the information that was collected, we move one more box to retrieve. And since this is just a display mode or a simulation, this is what would come up when I hit retrieve. So this is all the changes that are suggested to reach this target air-fuel ratio. And when you see a box that's empty, either that box is fine, it's at its 13.0 AFR, air-fuel ratio, or you didn't hit that particular cross point. So if I like what I see, if this is the information that I want to apply to our fuel map, then I'll move over one more tab and hit apply all. And so this is asking me if I want to save the map that I currently have in here, which you can always save the map. That way it's always there for you if you want to go back. Let's say this new fuel map was very responsive and you rolled out and the track all of a sudden dried out. You're like, I think I liked the little softer one before. You can just go back and load that, just for instance. So then you're going to come up here to modify. And what it did is it took these changes and it applied them to the actual fuel map, which the fuel map is what tells the bike how to fire the injector. So the main benefit of our ZFI fuel tuning system is that the fuel map from the factory, whether it's a street bike or a dirt bike, a side-by-side, is compromised. Some are compromised for emissions, some are compromised for noise, or just the fact that it's mapped in a different country with different fuel. So you can see just bone stock how big of an improvement this will give you over the stock fueling. Our self-mapping system, this is the most advanced self-mapping system on the market. It's the original. It records data. It doesn't map while you ride. And the reason for that is it will produce a much more accurate fuel map by just recording and not trying to respond. We've built the software to be as user-friendly as possible, but we also feel like we offer the best technical service and customer support in the industry. We want you to call us if you have any questions before you purchase it, after you have it, software, installation, anything you need, it's just a phone call away.
As you can see, Patrick explained pretty much all the way through the fuel mapping and the self-mapping system. The fuel map, I mean, everything works around the fuel map system. You have the standard ECU, you put the Pizzazz fuel map on, and then you're able to use the self-mapping system on top of that. And to be able to manipulate the Japanese electronics, I keep going back to that, that's a big deal. A lot of aftermarket companies, they use their own ECUs. We're using the factory ECU, and we're putting the Pizzazz fuel mapper on there. And then we're putting the self-mapping system on top of that. So we're able to manipulate the system any way we want and get the best result. So thanks, Patrick. I appreciate your time and all the effort you guys have put in these last few days. And I think that you guys need to try the Pizzazz products. They're very, very impressive. And like Patrick did say, if you do run into a problem, I mean, don't be afraid of technology. Technology, this is the way motocross is going. And the sooner you can get on board and start to understand it, the better you're going to be at it. Plus, Pizzazz has made it very user-friendly. So just, if you need help with anything, if you do purchase the product and you do need any kind of help, just, Pizzazz is a phone call away. Call Patrick, he'll walk you through it, whatever you need. So I appreciate you guys going through this with us, and I know you did appreciate it, and thanks. Don't forget, there are 3 ways that you can order here at Chaparral. You can call our 800 number, which is 800-841-2960. Go to our website, shapmoto.com, or just come on into our store and you'll be able to order whatever you need.